Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Hello everybody, welcome to The Wise Conservative. I am your host Connor Wise, and today we're going to be talking about something that I don't believe we have talked about yet on this channel. Today we're going to be talking about really what we should be doing in the Middle East in terms of ISIS in Syria and the whole Syria civil war issue. So, why don't we just start simple with something that has actually come up many times in these past debates, and something that has been discussed. I know for a fact I have discussed briefly about this no-fly zone. So let's start briefly with this no-fly zone that Marco Rubio and Hillary Clinton have advocated for in Syria. So what Marco Rubio and Hillary Clinton in this case want to do, they want to essentially establish a no-fly zone over Syria. They believe that this will help to destroy ISIS more because, well, ISIS won't be flying planes in that area because we will be shooting them down. But they fail to realize that ISIS does not have any planes. What would happen with this no-fly zone is, of course, Russia, one of another great country in the world, another powerful country in the world, they would fly their planes into this no-fly zone. So there's really two options that could happen with this no-fly zone. One of the two is being that Russia right away flies a plane into this area and we do nothing. But let's really think about what that would entail. What would it entail if Russia flew a jet into our no-fly zone that we recently implemented? Well, if we don't shoot it down, we would be coming across as weak. Our country would be laughed at by the Russian populace. Our country would be looked at as not able to stand up for what we implement across the entire world. So that's obviously a horrible outcome that could happen with this no-fly zone. But then you look at the other option. Russia flies a jet into the area and we shoot it down. Well, this quite honestly, I don't know which one is worse. So if we actually look at both of these, they are essentially both horrible problems. You see, if we do shoot down this Russian jet that would fly into the no-fly zone, that's no doubt. Russia would fly a jet into the no-fly zone just to test us. So if we did shoot it down, what would happen is, first off, Russia would take this as an act of war. We just shot down one of their fighter jets. So first off, Russia would start to be preparing for war against America. Well, and all of Russia's allies would start to be preparing for war. You know what next would happen? Well, essentially the Cold War would happen. All of the NATO allies would have to rise up again. All of Russia's allies would have to rise up again. And we would essentially see another world war. We would essentially see this great divide actually create a split. And so that is why this no-fly zone is essentially such a horrible idea. And It's really just not a great plan, and we can see that multiple candidates do support this in this election. So that's how I feel about that no-fly zone. So let's kind of move on to more issues about the Middle East. As it is a highly debated area, there are many problems going on in the area. Well, this is another one very close to what I was just talking about, whether we should topple Assad or not. So this is actually a topic that many conservatives are in favor of. I debate many conservatives about this point because a lot of them say, yes, topple this man. But they haven't looked at the past. In the past, we have tried to topple these dictators, and it hasn't worked. In the past, we have tried to topple these evil men, and it hasn't worked. Most recently, we supported the rebels in Libya, and they toppled Gaddafi. Well, let's look what that got us. Gaddafi came out of power because he was killed. Well, what happened next? Well, the power gap happened. And you know who filled that power gap? ISIS. This is when ISIS was essentially created, because we went and toppled these dictators. We can see in any example of us toppling a dictator that it hasn't worked whatsoever. We can see that all of these past experiences of us trying to essentially control governments hasn't worked. Now, I know that a lot of you do believe that we should do this because Assad has committed many human rights violations. And yes, Assad is an evil man. He has committed many crimes against humanity. But the facts still stand that toppling dictators does not work. There will be even more chaos in Syria if we do this, because then ISIS, which is directly in Syria right now, would have even more power. They would be able to take control of the entire country. So backing the FSA, the freedom fighters in Syria, in order to topple this dictator, honestly will not work. We can see that it didn't work in the past. We can see that it won't work in the future. We can see that it will not work right now. So that's exactly why we should not be toppling Assad. That's exactly why we should not be backing these fighters to topple Assad. Because the facts prove that this hasn't worked in the past. And the facts prove that this will not work. So this is a topic that actually is highly debated within even just the conservative community. I know many conservatives who support the toppling of Assad. Actually, a majority of conservatives do. But then I also do know some of the conservatives, like myself, who believe this is a grave mistake. And this is a very important topic because it really defines on how our foreign policy will be for the next century. Because if we do topple Assad, there will be more effects than just a power gap and this terror group coming to power. First off, we are going to have to expand our operations in the area. Well, I mean, let's look at the debt clock. We're $19 trillion in debt. Now, I am not saying that we shouldn't be operating in that area whatsoever. Of course, we have to be funding some sort of military expeditions, which we are right now. But the facts still stand that we're $19 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to be expanding our military outreach at this moment. Until we can figure out how to improve ourselves within our own community, within our own country, we will not be able to essentially expand our reach into this other area. We will not be able to properly do what is necessary in order to complete these operations. Because we're 19. Now take a moment to think about this. $19 trillion in debt. That's a huge number, guys. 19 trillion. Just last year, it was at 18 trillion. It is set to be over 20 trillion by the time President Barack Obama leaves office. We can see that this is not going to go away unless we change our ways. We can see that this is not going to go away if we expand our operations. Now, many people fight me when I say this by saying this is essential, that we have to do something about this evil dictator. But as I explained, this will have a horrible power gap that will cause ISIS to grow. And, of course, we do not have the money to further these operations. People, they argue about whether they're fiscal conservatives. Well, most of the conservatives in the race right now are not actually fiscal conservatives. Because the fact stands that it is not conservative to expand the military budget by trillions of dollars when we're $19 trillion in debt. That's just not conservative whatsoever. Conservative is to limit the government. Conservative is to limit the spending. It is not conservative to expand our military outreach to essentially imperialize the Middle East. I know after doing this recording, I am going to have some people who say I am being isolationist. It has happened in the past when I expressed my views on this topic. But I really hate that word because the fact is I am not isolationist. I am just non-interventionalist. Because in the past when we have intervened, it has not worked. We should not be trying to create these democratic governments in the Middle East. It just does not work there. The mindsets of these people in the Middle East is completely different than the mindsets of you or me. They are completely different mindsets than any democratic nation, or republic for that matter. So these mindsets will not be able to handle a democratic society. These mindsets will not be able to control themselves with a democratic government. And that's exactly why every time we've tried to set up one of these democracies in the Middle East, it has failed. It has failed tremendously. Every time we have tried to essentially imperialize the Middle East. And, well, imperialism is over, people. We should not be expanding our reach more and more and more into this Middle East, where there is enough trouble to begin with. But if you look at what is going on right now, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all of these issues were actually created by us intervening in the Middle East. We funded all of these rebels. We funded these rebels who were essentially on our side at the beginning. But if you think about it, we never know who these rebels are. Do you ever hear names of any of them? Do you ever hear who they actually are? No, you do not. Because the fact is, these people, we do not know who they are. We are funding these rebels when we ourselves, we as a nation, do not know who they are. There's many sources that point to the fact that there could actually be Taliban members in these freedom fighters that we're supporting. That there could be members of Al-Qaeda in it. So at this point, why are we supporting them when there are actually some sources that say we could be supporting Al-Qaeda or the Taliban? It is mind-boggling to actually think that anyone who considers themselves conservative thinks that we should be supporting these terrorist organizations. It is mind-boggling to think that anyone who even considers themselves conservative would be supporting expanding our military outreach to essentially imperialize the Middle East. We have allies in the Middle East, but we should not have our own controlled countries over there. We should not be in control of other sovereign nations. That's why we have allies, people. We have allies so that we do not have to take over other countries in order to have influence. We have great allies in the area. We have Israel, our number one ally in the region. So we do have influential allies in the region. We do not need to be imperializing even more countries so that we can get our oil or our trade through the area. We can see that we already are allies with Saudi Arabia, a country who provides, they're the second provider of oil to the U.S. So we are definitely in a position where we do not need to be expanding our reach in the Middle East. We do not need to be expanding our reach into other nations of the Middle East. And yes, this includes Syria. We do not need to be taking over the government of Syria. We do not need to be funding the rebels who we don't even know who they are. They might be terrorists. We do not know who they are. We should not be funding them to take over the government in Syria. Because right now, the government in Syria, while it is maybe committing a few human rights violations, I am not saying that is not, a horrible thing. But what I am saying is right now, they are the last bit of stability in the area. Because right now, they are holding the power that is keeping ISIS from becoming the biggest threat. Because right now, ISIS is actually limited because they are not able to control all of Syria. All of Syria that right now the government, Assad, is controlling. Because right now, Assad is essentially the key. Assad is the key to keeping this power gap from happening. This power gap that will result in more terrorism. This power gap that will result in more American lives who have been killed for the name of war. This power gap that will result in not just the lives of Americans, but the lives of our allies and the lives of people in the Middle East to die. We cannot stand for that, people. We cannot stand for any sort of foreign policy that will result in unnecessary deaths. Deaths that only happened because we wanted to expand our outreach into a country that has been at chaos for many years. We are not the nation to solve this problem. We are not the nation to expand our reach into this country even further. Quite honestly, I don't know if there is a nation that should be doing this. But right now, Russia is doing this. They are backing Assad. So that's another reason why we should not be going against Assad. That is essentially going directly against Russia. And as I explained with the no-fly zone, we cannot afford to be going at war with one of the most powerful countries in the world. While Russia's economy is in shambles because of the sanctions we have put on them, their military is not. Their military is still able to fully operate even with these sanctions in place. So we can see that Russia is not going to back down at a fight. We can see that if we go directly against them, Russia will not back down, and we will result in even more war, even more horrible deaths, even more innocent civilians killed, even more American lives ended. All because we made some foreign policy mistakes. So think about that. Think about the fact that right now, if we continue down this path, the people like Marco Rubio want us to continue down. The people like Donald Trump want us to continue down. The people like Hillary Clinton want us to continue down. We will result in just more war. We will result in the death of young Americans. I don't think anyone stands for the death of Americans. I don't think anyone stands for more war. No one runs their campaign on war because the fact stands that people do not want to go to war. But if you actually look at the facts, right now, many foreign policies that are actually being discussed would result in exactly that. So right now, we cannot be going directly against Russia, against the fight in Assad. We cannot be going against Russia with this no-fly zone. Because the only way we will be able to improve our relations with not only the Middle East, but also with Russia, is if we do not do this. Because Russia is a powerful nation, we have to improve our relations with them. The Middle East, there are many great countries in the area, we have to improve our relations with them. But the only way we can do this, the only real solution to this problem, is if we do not implement these foreign policies that are being vouched for. That if we do not implement these foreign policies that will directly result in war, is the only solution that makes sense, is the only solution that is even presented, is the only solution that will solve the problem at hand. So you might be wondering why I have actually brought up this topic out of the blue. Well, of course, the Middle East is discussed by many people every day, but it goes deeper than that. I am recording this the night before Super Tuesday, and I was actually looking at the different policies of the candidates because, well, I want to be informed and I want to be able to make decisions on who I think will win. And I was looking at these different policies, especially foreign policies, and it kept hitting me that these people were supporting the same foreign policy. The same foreign policy that, as I have explained throughout this recording, will result in just death, will result in us going further into debt, will result in unnecessary violence. So I know that this recording will be going up at 6 p.m. Western Time on Super Tuesday. And I know that some voting will still be happening. So if while you are listening to this, if you are in one of those states that has not closed their voting, well, think about the foreign policies. Think about these policies that, quite honestly, will not help America whatsoever. And you know what? This does not just go to those who are voting tomorrow in Super Tuesday. This goes to anyone who is going to vote in the primaries whatsoever. This goes to every single American. Look at the issues. Because too often, these presidential candidates, this presidential race, has been turned into entertainment. We can see this directly with the way Trump runs his campaign. Everything he does is for entertainment. Too often, we have been blinded by this entertainment, and we haven't actually looked at substance. It is quite sad, honestly, that we do not look at substance more, that we do not look at these foreign policies, that we do not look at the tax plans. America right now is blinded by this entertainment that the media has put in front of us for this presidential race. Back in the day, presidential races were not looked at as entertainment. They were looked at as necessary devices in order to elect the next president of the United States. It's time we go back to that mindset. It is time that we actually look at these policies. Because if we look at these policies, I guarantee that Marco Rubio would not be doing as well as he is. I guarantee that people would see that his policies would just result in death. That his policies would just result in plunging us further and further into this debt, and which is currently a horrible problem with our country. I guarantee that people would realize that these candidates that support this no-fly zone, Hillary Clinton and Marco Rubio and others, that, well, they have horrible foreign policies. These foreign policies that will not help whatsoever. Because if people actually looked at substance, we would not have Donald Trump as the front runner. We would not even have Marco Rubio as one of the top three. Hillary Clinton would not be leading her Democratic nomination. The fact stands that people do not look at the substance, though. And it is a sad time in America because we do not. So that is really why I made this recording. Because people aren't informed about these policies anymore. People are not informed about what is going on in the Middle East. It is a very confusing situation in the Middle East with the different Muslim groups, the Shias and the Sunnis, fighting. It is a very confusing situation. But if we were actually informed, we would be able to know that these foreign policies are not going to work. If we focus more on substance than entertainment, we would be able to see that this conflict could be avoided. We would be able to see that if we do not enact these interventionist policies, that if we stay out of the business of Syria, that our nation would not only prosper, but the nations in the area would prosper, and even our relations with Russia would prosper. It is necessary for us to stay out of this conflict. It is necessary for us to stop backing these rebels that we don't even know their names. We don't even know whether they are terrorists, whether they are part of the Taliban, whether they are part of Al-Qaeda. We do not know. So the facts still stand. The facts are standing. That we should not be implementing these foreign policies, that we should not be implementing these interventionalist policies, these essentially imperialistic policies. Because imperialism did not work in the late 1800s, imperialism will not work now. It is a horrible option for any country to go to, and why should we be starting this up again? The fact is, we shouldn't be starting it up again. But people ignore the facts. People are too focused on entertainment. So look at substance before you go and vote in the primaries or even the general election this year. Look at the substance of these different policies. Look at the substance of what the candidates have had to say in the past. Look at the substance of what the candidates are saying now, and look at the substance of what you believe they will be saying in the future. Because if you do not look at the substance, this entire presidential race will be useless, because we will elect a candidate that is essentially the same as this foreign policy that President Barack Obama is enacting currently. We will elect a candidate that will not change our relations with Russia, that will not change our relations with the Middle East. And we cannot have this happen. We cannot have this happen when we have the horrible issue of not only our debt, but also all of these wars that are on the brink of happening. So look at the substance. Look at the policies before you vote. So that's all I have to say on the topic of what we should be doing in the Middle East and what we should not be doing in the Middle East. So before I finish this recording, I really just want to ask you guys some questions about the time that I am putting out these recordings. Because right now I am releasing my recordings on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Western Time, Pacific Standard Time. But I have a schedule that is pretty busy on Tuesdays for, quite honestly, months upon months. I have sports that happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next few months. So I just want to ask you guys what you think I should move my recording to, what day you think is best for you. I will be keeping it at 6 p.m. no matter what day it is, just because that is the most convenient day for me, or time for me, no matter what day it is. But please respond as to what day you think I should be doing this on, if not for Tuesday, because if I do it Tuesday, I won't be able to live record any broadcasts, and I will have to do it as I am right now and record it the day before or a couple days before. So if you would like me to do them live, which I quite honestly really want to keep doing them live. I did one live broadcast and I had a very fun time with it. I loved the interaction between you guys. So if you really want to see this happening again, please suggest any days that you would like me to move to. I cannot move to Thursday, as I said before, because first off, that is when my partner does his recordings, but also because I am busy on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So please give it some thought and leave some feedback, whether this is on YouTube or whether this is on Spreaker that you are listening. Give the video or the recording a like if you would wish. It's always nice to hear some feedback about not only what day I should switch to, but also what we can improve in these recordings. So with that, this is all I actually have to talk about in this recording. So thank you for tuning in to The Wise Conservative, and I have been your host, Connor Wise. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you Thursday night when my partner is hosting The Wise Conservative. Okay, thank you for tuning in.